Hi everybody, it's Vicky with Get Messy NL. How's everybody doing on this snowy day? Today's weather is a bit blistery out there today, so I thought why not stay inside and do a little video. So we're going to do this little gnome here today for Valentine's Day. So I've already got him started, and I'm going to walk you through up to this point, and then we will paint together. I do want to remind you or let you know that you can pause this video at any time. So if you need to wait for things to dry or you need to go and come back to them, that's totally okay. The best paintings are the ones that you work really hard on, and sometimes they might take a little while to do. Other times you can do them quickly, but this one is really super cute. So I think we'll really do a really good job at this one for Valentine's Day. So what I did in the first place was I drew out my gnome first on a blank canvas. And the first thing that's the best thing to do, I find, when I'm drawing, is find your center point. And that usually helps you with the rest of your drawing. So right here in his little nose, this is his central point. So I drew this little circle first, kind of more like an oval. So once you get that little circle done right there, and you can see it's around about the center of the canvas, and then you're going to take your pencil and you're going to draw a line down here and a line down here. Make sure you come out a little bit to make sure we have enough space for the beard. And then you're going to just do that second line. So it kind of looks like a rainbow. So if we go from here to here to here. So we have the nose and then like a rainbow kind of over it. The next thing I did with my pencil was I shaped my hat. So you could take from a point here and just kind of bring it up like this. And then you're going to take a point here and bring it up like this and kind of swerve it around and make the point of the hat. Then what I did was I drew a little heart right there for the top of his hat. And then I made some stripes for his hat. And of course, some more hearts for Valentine's Day. So then when you get the hat done, we don't really need to draw out the beard. That'll just be left white. But you could draw this really nice heart right here in the middle. And then what this part is, so I just drew a line here and here to continue it off. And these are going to be his legs, or like his little feet or his pants or whatever. But when I continue with the beard, and we'll do that together, it's going to come down over this red, so it won't be as noticeable. But we just want that kind of in the background. So when we paint, the first thing to do is paint the background. And I chose this really nice teal color today. I thought it would look really cute with the red and the pink. But you can choose whatever color you have at home, or if you go to pick up some paints, you can choose whatever color background you would like. We always start with a wet brush. So before you start, you have to make sure you have all your supplies. So we need a cup of water, a couple of different sizes of paintbrushes, and whatever colors you want, and a piece of paper towel. And of course our canvas and a pencil. So once we have that, like I said, we always start with a damp brush. Not wet, but damp. So you're going to put it in your water, take off any extra, and then I use my paper towel and just dab it on there to get off any excess water that might be on your brush. But a damp brush is going to help that paint to smooth. So I've already got a coat on mine, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. When we do our coats of paint, like I said, I like to do 2. Depending on the color, you may have to do 3 coats of paint. But the first coat, we don't have to worry about how it looks. We just want a nice thin layer of paint on there. So go ahead and paint your background and go as nice and easy around the sides as you possibly can, around the gnome. And also do your sides of your canvas as well, because when you hang it on the wall, it will look finished. There we go. So like I said, I'm going to go along now. I have 1 coat on here already, and I'm going to do a second coat. And kind of fill in any spots that might need to be filled in. and go really close to the gnome, the best you can. If you do get a little bit in there, it's okay. There we go, nice and easy, like that. And just make sure we fill in all the bits. Now I have this size because I find it's easy to get in close, like these little spaces here. But I also have a large brush that I like to use. And that will help fill in anything else that's a little faster, I guess. There we go. We're almost there. Second coat should go on fairly easy. Much better than the first coat because we're just really filling in any of those white bits that you can kind of see through the canvas. And again, don't forget to come around the top and the sides and the bottom as well. And then what you're going to do is then you're going to do your pink and your red. So you can go ahead and fill in whatever is pink, and then you can rinse out your brush and you can fill in everything that's red. So remember, 2 coats. 1 coat just to get that paint on there. Nice and thin. We do not want thick paint. It's going to take a very long time to dry. And if you try to put a second coat on top of that first coat, then you're going to lift off that paint and you'll always have a little spot that will never cover. And we don't want that. So what you're going to do is 1 coat. Make sure it's completely dry and then do a second coat. Okay? And again, don't forget that you can just pause this whenever you want and then go back to it. So I do have a second coat done on mine, except for my heart. So I'm going to go ahead now. There we go. And I'm going to do a second coat. And I have this nice fine brush that I like because I find that it gives, it's really good to get really close in like this. But again, everybody's preferences are different. So you just use whatever brush you feel comfortable with. Just remember, too big, it won't, might be hard to get that really fine detail and not go outside of the lines. And if it's too small, it'll actually take you a really long time. There we go. So I've almost done that second coat. And this heart will actually have the word love wrote in it. There we go. And I'm going to spread out. Like we said, we don't want glops of paint, right? Nice thin coats. So you're going to spread it out nice and evenly. So I think he's really coming along here now. So with this same brush, this nice fine point right here, you can see it. I'm going to do the beard with this. And the little trick with the beard is we actually go in with 2 colors at one time. But black is a very hard color to work with. So I want you to be very, very careful. But if you do end up with it too dark, it's okay because it's acrylic paint and we can just wait for it to dry and go back in afterwards with it. So remember, there's no rush with this. Really figure out how you're going to do your beard. So for me, like I said, I have some black and some white. And I'm just going to kind of go back and forth. The trick is not to go over it too many times because the more you go over it, you're just going to create a new color and we'll end up with one big gray beard. So you want to be able to just do a couple of lines or strokes the less paint on your brush and then going back and adding more paint is better than too much paint on your brush. So you might have to do a couple of lines and then go back in. So what I'm going to do, so this is going to be his beard. There is going to be a mustache that comes along here afterwards, but I want this bottom part of the beard or the background of the beard to go on first. So I'm going to dip into my white like this, and then I get a little tiny dot of black. And like I said, we don't need much, if I can get any. So see, there's like a little tiny bit of that black. So what we do then, so see how if I pull that down, can you see that line? Now I'm getting two of those colors. But again, you don't want to do it too much because we'll end up with one big gray beard. So you just go ahead and work it however you think you want your beard to be. It also doesn't have to be black and white. If you want to have a different color beard, you can. I will give you a little tidbit or a little tidbit. With the darker, like this, a little bit of black on my brush, the darker part you want to get wherever there would be a shadow. So where his ties for his hat come around here, we would want it a little bit darker in there. So I'm just going to do like that. And if you can see, I will bring it closer. So see how now that black line is causing a shadow underneath. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Really close. And you can see now how that adds some depth. So now I'm going to go back to my white. Like I said, just keep dragging it down. I know it's hard to see here, but all we're doing is we're dragging that color down. So from here, like this. And all I'm doing, like I said, is just bringing all of that down, like that. So I'm just going to go back in again with the black, and I'm just going to do any little touch-ups that might need to be done. So I'm going to go ahead and pause right now so I can get mine done. It's kind of hard to work on it on the side, but you guys work on your beard, and I'll come back in a second and show you how mine turned out. Okay, so now that you can see I have my beard kind of figured out there for the background. I did come down a little bit over the feet right here to make it look like it's kind of dangling a little bit. So the next thing I'm going to do, I do have to add in the mustache, but I really want to make sure that that beard part is really dry before I do that, because it's black underneath, and well, with any color really, when we go to pull it, we might end up pulling some of that other color, and I don't really want to do that. Some situations you can, but for this one, I'm just don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some highlights on the hat while I'm waiting. So I've rinsed out my brush really well. Wipe it off in your paper towel. And now what I'm going to do is go in with the white. And again, I'm using my detailed brush. And I'm going to come along the top part of this hat here. And what that's going to do is it's going to create some depth on the hat. So here we go. And I just go until my paint runs out. It's better to do that than to stop and start, because you'll always see that little kind of spot. So then I'm going to continue my line around to the other side. So I'm just going to straighten it out a little bit, like so. If you find that your brush is really dry, just remember we need a damp brush, so you can always get rid of that paint, dampen your brush again, and go back in. So I don't want this line to be too thick. I just want it to be like a highlight. So as you can see, I've only gone this far because I'm thinking about my light source. So if my light source is coming from up here and it's going to come down and hit, this side of him will kind of be shadowed. So I'm going to go back in with some more white again. And this time what I'm going to do is a couple of little spots up here. So I'm going to start on this end. And again, just let that wear out. So see how I went and I just let that wear out. Now I'm going to go in again with some more. And I'm going to come up here and do the same thing. See, one line straight up through there. Go back in with some more. And I'm just going to continue this like so. So see how I've kind of filled in that one side? Now I'm also going to do this little heart here. Remember, after we've had 2 coats of paint put on everything, that's when we start adding in some detail. Okay, so the other thing I still have to do is these little tassels. And the reason why I didn't do those yet is because I still had to wait for my second coat to dry on the teal. So as you can see, I made sure it was kind of up into here. So what I'm going to do now is put some pink on my brush. I still have a little bit of white on my brush, but that's okay because again, it's just going to cause some highlights. And I'm just going to do quick little flicks like this. When we do little flicks, it's all kind of how you hold it. So I find if I hold it like a pencil, like this, and you can kind of practice. And don't move your wrist, just your fingers, almost like chopsticks. So I'm going flick, 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 like this. Quick little flicks. There we go. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Like that. It's coming along so cute. All right. The reason why I haven't done the nose yet is because I'm waiting to do the beard. So once that, or sorry, the mustache. So once that beard is kind of dry and we can go in with the mustache, we might end up with a little bit kind of going in here. So I'm waiting to finish that until everything is on there. So if I did go up, I can always cover it a little bit. So I'm going to take a look now. I think my beard seems fairly dry. So I'm going to clean my brush really, really good. And this time I'm going to go in with just white. So no black on it, just the white. And what this is going to do is it's going to make the mustache appear more forward than the beard is, which is kind of true. So if you have a beard on your face, say, and then you have a mustache, it should kind of like all blend together, right? So I'm going to come in with my white, and I'm going to figure out where I want my mustache to be. So I kind of want it to twirl a little bit out like this. So I'm going to find my line, and I'm going to come around like this. And I'll give you a close-up there now in a second. And like this. I kind of went over the heart a little bit, but that's okay. We can fix that. There's never any mistakes. And then I'm going to mimic the same shape on the other side. And like I said, it might seem hard to see, but can you see this here? So I'm coming out from about the middle part of his nose. Like so. And then I'm just going to come down and kind of fill that in. Now you want to go all in the same direction, because if we go in too many different directions, it won't piece together very well. So remember, I'm just doing downward motions here. Now, unless you got to kind of go around something, but then you can kind of follow it with those directions again. So see how I'm just shaping the beard, how I want the mustache to be. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do, it doesn't really come under the heart so much, it kind of curls out. So I'm gonna create like a little curl out like that. You could see that little point right here. Like so. So see how the background was darker? So now this mustache line is a little more pronounced. So while I do the other side, I'm going to come around so it's easier for you guys to see. So I'm going to bring that down, and then I'm going to curve it out. Like so. So now I'm starting to shape the mustache. I'm just making sure that I'm kind of even on both sides so that they mirror each other, like so, like that. So I'm going to pause here again, and don't forget, you guys can pause at any point too, and I'm just going to work on my mustache, and I'll come back and show you how mine looked, and then we'll continue on with the rest of it. Okay, so now that you can see here, I ended up fiddling with my beard and mustache a little bit. Remember I was saying earlier how sometimes we have to take our really good time. Sometimes we might need to make sure things are dry to paint back over them. So I just wanted to say as well that if you're not quite sure how the finished product is going to look, excuse me, you would have to, you can scroll to the end of this video and kind of see, at least then it'll give you a heads up as to what it's going to look like in the end, and then you can go back and watch it from the beginning. So like I said, I've got this beard done here now. So what I'm going to do now is the peach of his nose. So I'm going to rinse my brush out because I just had a little bit of black on there, and we want to make sure there's no black in our color. And I'm just going to put a little peach on my palette. And remember to use a damp brush. So wipe it off in your paper towel. And then we're just going to go ahead and fill in his pink, or not pink, his peach nose. So remember, try and steady your hand and go slow. There's no rush for painting, especially if we're just stuck at home anyway, hey? So I'm just going to come along here so you can see a bit better. And just, if you notice what I do, and I'll tell you what it is there now, I don't usually start very close to the edge, because when we have a bit of paint on our brush, if we start close to the edge, we might push that paint out into a part that we don't want it on. So what I tend to do is do it a little bit further away from where I want. So here's my edge up here. I'm going to start it down here. So I'm going to put my paint down here. And then I could smooth it out and bring it up to where I need it to be. It's a little tidbit to kind of help you out. So I'm going to finish his little nose here now. Like so. And then I'm going to kind of wait for this to dry. I'm going to put a little bit closer. Seems to be a glare there. So as you can see, his little peach nose. I think it's going to be super cute. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to add in a couple of more details. So I'm going to rinse out my brush. So you know how we did these white highlights along his hat? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in with a little bit of the red that I was using. I might have to put a little bit more on my palette here. And I'll go in with a little bit of that red there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some stitching going all around this big heart that's in here. So we just need to do little tiny lines. It doesn't have to be very big. Just little lines going right along the edge. Can you see that? Do little red lines just along, so it looks like stitching, right? I'm just going to trace, not trace, but kind of follow the line as I go. Remember, taking your time is the best thing. There's no rush. Also, no mistakes, remember? So if we do happen to think we have a mistake, there's always a way to fix it. Okay, so I have my stitching done there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write in the word love. Now if you can kind of see, I did actually put it in before I painted, so I can kind of see it in behind. And that kind of helps. If you want to, you could also just take a pencil and draw it out after, or if you feel comfortable, you can just go ahead with your paintbrush and do it. So I'm going to, nice and slowly, this also will be backwards for you guys. Also, if you notice, I like to brace, so I'll use my pinky. Sometimes if we use our pinky to hold, it's easier to have stability when you're going. And I'm just using the very tip of my paintbrush. I don't have much paint on there at all. There we go. Super cute. So now, again, my nose isn't quite dry. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of red again here. And I'm actually going to add some red to the tassel, just so that it again adds some depth. And what creates depth is when we have a shadow and a highlight. So the shadow is where the sun would be hidden, and then the highlight is where the sun would hit. Not necessarily the sun, but any kind of light source. Could be a light up in the ceiling, could be the window light, could be anything. And I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. So you can see that now. I have some red kind of going through the tassel there. Okay, so I'm going to go back in now with the peach. And for a second coat of the peach, I'm going to give you a little tidbit on how to make him look like he has a rosy nose. So I'm going to quickly put this second coat on. And the reason why I want to do it quickly is because I still need it to be wet for this and not dry. I know there's kind of a glare there, so I'll just hold it up like this, might be a little bit easier. All right. Okay, so I have that second coat on there. You also want to go as much in the direction. So if you have a round nose and you start going down like this, your nose won't look round. So the best thing to do is kind of follow that shape and do like this, so that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with a little bit of the pink, and not much, and I haven't washed my brush. I still have that peach on there. And I'm just going to add a little bit of pink. Can you see that little tiny bit of pink there? And while this is still wet, we're going to do a blend. So I'm going to start in the middle of his nose and just put that little bit of pink in there. And I'm going to go around in circles, just like I was just saying. But just kind of in the middle part. You might need to add in an extra little bit. But remember, it's always easier to use a little bit than too much. You can also kind of do this kind of little pattern there. I'm just spreading it out a little bit. Make him look like he has a pink rosy nose. Like so. Look how cute. It's kind of hard to see there, but it does look super cute. All right. I'm going to set up my easel again here. Oh, he's really coming along. All right. So he actually has hands. And I didn't draw on those hands because, again, we wanted that beard in the background. So sometimes if you want to draw on, you can, but other times might be just as easy to go in after. So I'm going to wash out my brush again. And I'm going to outline. So I'm going to go in with the red, and I'm just going to create an outline of a mitten. And that's what's going to be our little hands. And they are going to be holding on to this sign here. So all I want to do, almost like a circle. And then like a little thumb. Kind of like you're drawing with your, can you guys see that? I just have an outline made. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And they don't have to be the same. Like that. And then I'm just going to fill them in. So I'm just going to pause it while I fill them in, and then I'll come back and we'll see how it looks. All right. So we're almost done there now. I'm just going to add in a couple of more little details. And the details is what makes your painting come to life. So I've got his gloves put on here, or his mitts. But I'm going to do kind of the same thing we did up there with the white. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of white on the tip of my brush. And all I want to do is just kind of highlight a little area like that on the gloves. You don't need much, just that little tiny bit. I'm also going to, again, with a little tiny bit of white, across the tip of the nose. Oh, I don't think my peach was quite dry when I did that, so we might have to hold off on that one for a minute. But I did want to show you, if you wanted to kind of add some curve into his hat, I'm going to go in a little bit with the white again. And what we can do is you can kind of go like this. You can start adding in like a curved line. And that'll kind of give the illusion that there is like a bend in the hat. I don't think I'm quite liking how it's looking. And that's okay too, because sometimes we go ahead and do things and then we're not happy with how they look. And remember, I said that's okay. So what I did is I'm just going to go back in with the pink. And I'm just going to go over that, like so. So I've actually, surprisingly, created another highlight there. So I think I'm going to leave it like that. And you know what? That's the best way to learn, is to just kind of throw yourself in there. see how your paintbrush works with the paints and see what kind of happens as you do different things with it. Blending is another really good practice that you might want to do. You can learn how to blend and transition colors into other colors and that sort of thing. So like I said, I'm still a little bit wet up here to do that little highlight on the nose. But because it's Valentine's Day, of course, and I don't want to leave my background too plain, what I'm going to do is do some dots in the background. And this one is super easy. So I'm going to use the back of my brush, and I might actually use one of my bigger brushes as well. So I have two different sizes of dots that I could do. And all you do is you dip the back of your brush into whatever color, mine's going to be red, with my big one. Can you see that? And I'm just going to randomly put some like that in a bunch of different places. You can also have them coming around the sides. So just like that. And then I'm going to go in with my smaller brush, and this time I think I'll do pink. So I'm going to put some smaller ones. I know it's kind of hard to see the pink on the teal, but I'm just going to do some smaller ones in and around. And this way it'll give you a few different sizes of dots. And just randomly put them in different places. So this time I do have an extra brush here that's kind of a mid-size, and I'm going to do white this time. So this way I have all of my Valentine's colors into the background. This is also a really neat trick if you're doing snow on a picture. There we go. So I think he's super cute. Now let's see if I'm dry enough to do that white part on there. A little bit of white on my brush. Not too bad. There we go. So I can do a close-up here now so you guys can kind of see how he looks. Do a little, like I said, a little highlight on there on the top of his nose. Because I was still a little bit wet, I'm just going to touch up some spots there, like so. So he's super cute. All right. So I hope everybody had an awesome time painting this little gnome with me today. And I believe I'm going to be doing a few more videos for Valentine's Day. So keep touch, and we'll hope to see you back here again for another Get Messy video. Thank you.